Introducing the Champion's Mindset, the podcast that gives your inner game a serious upgrade. Join internationally renowned mindset and performance expert, KATHRYN Orford.
Well, hi there, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to another episode of the Champion's Mindset. Today, I'm so excited. I am going to welcome Deborah Johnson. Now, Deborah and I go a long way back. She's a nationally recognized author, inspirational speaker, and an expert in personal and professional leadership and development. She's got a unique ability to help people navigate life's transitions and step into their next season with confidence. Deborah's the author of Halftime Success and The Power of After. And in her work, she guides individuals to rediscover purpose, build resilience, and create success in the second half of life. Deborah, it is such an honor to welcome you to the show. So, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. So how fun we were able to work this out. So thank you.
I know. So, what inspired you to write Halftime Success, which was the first book, right?
It's called actually Women at Halftime, but I have an affiliate program, Halftime Success, as well. But it's all about those who are at mid-career, halftime of life. I felt like they aren't maximizing their skills, their resources, and their experience really to create really the best time of life.
And what about The Power of After? How did that come about?
Power of
The
After.
newest one, right?
Yeah, just out. Again, kind of some of the same messaging, but I also hit on some very basics because it's growing so much every day. Basics of AI, establishing your ideal lifestyle, your ideal business, and really talking about automation because people are very interested in how to work remotely, how to automate their business. And that's part of what my life is all about now too. I do a lot of travel, so I'm able to run business from anywhere.
And so, how do you help people rediscover their passion and their purpose, especially if they're feeling stuck?
Yeah, feeling stuck. I think a lot of that is to take a step back. A lot of it is mindset.
Mm.
And I know you talk a lot about champions mindset. Now, of course, in my background I still do presently quite a bit of work in music too, because I've been a professional musician. There's a lot in that champion mindset in you going on stage. If I'm going to be in front of a large audience, there's that moment backstage where you're thinking, okay, like me, how am I going to do? Am I going to remember all of my words and my music, everything, all of that? But the same thing happens when we are hitting the next part of our life. Can I do it? Is the world moving too fast? I can't relate anymore. Am I too old? Oh my goodness, that's a big one. So there's a lot in that mindset that happens. And performer, when you talked about athletes, I know you've been in the dance, and I've worked with quite a few, and actually I have family members who are athletes, former professional athlete. That was my husband, and now athletes also in some of my family members. There's a real mindset there when you don't have that box and you don't have that sort of system together. Now you're creating your own system, and it's a whole different thing. How do you reinvent? So I kind of approach a lot of that is mindset and getting over that and journaling and spending time with that. Get a good coach. Get somebody who can really help you to that next step.
So, speaking of mindset shifts,
Mm-hmm.
what are some things that can help people transition successfully into their second act?
Couple of things is to, first of all, realize that the imposter syndrome is, you just need to throw that away.
Yeah.
It's there. It's very, very true. And embrace a growth mindset. And that's different than that stuck mindset, that you aren't afraid to take a step forward and learn. And listen. There are so many podcasts. There are so many books out, and tools out that you can learn and grow and be inspired from. And so that is a big step. Take time to journal. People don't
Mm.
stop, and I'm a doer. I'm a type A. Can you tell? I've I've also I've just done 5 batches of jam today. Peaches were ready at our house. Okay, so we had 5 batches of jam. So okay, but I'm so excited about being able to take a step back. Even if you're a doer and you're going to do all of this stuff, take that step back, spend time. I like the early morning hours. Take time to write a couple sentences, see where you're at, kind of see where you're moving forward. It really does pay off to be able to do that. Spend some time thinking, get some time to really see what do you really want to do, because people just do and they don't take a step back. You have a lot more freedom at this point of life. Halftime officially, it might be a little later now, but usually the internet always said it's age 40 halftime. But I'm
Wow.
really fast, okay? Really fast. But there are so many transitions that happen through your 40s to
Mm.
45 to 50. There's a lot of transitions, but you end up having a lot of freedom. As if you've been in a career or you've had your education done, you have a lot more freedom at this point in your life. So you're able to make some of those decisions on, okay, what am I really wanting to do? I've seen people go into music at this point in their life. I've seen them go into, the arts. Oh, they've always wanted to, do this area of start it with a side business, just something a little
Mhm.
small. But, don't waste those years. Just don't waste them.
Yeah. And I talk about, the four invisible saboteurs that undermine everybody and every team: the inner critic, negative boxes, and positive boxes and labels, really, because some people have trouble living up to expectations.
Right.
Um, Playing the compare and despair game. And the fourth one is the imposter syndrome. And I always say, just kick it to the curb. The same with the inner critic. Put it in the back seat. Don't let it be in the driving seat, behind the wheel. So, what tips would you have for people that, have had this burning desire to do something, as a youngster, and they didn't do that? They followed what everyone else said they should do. And now they're at a stage where they're going, am I too old? Or what if I'm not good enough? The whole imposter syndrome and inner critic thing. So, did you suffer from that? And if so, how did you get over it? And what would you suggest to our viewers?
That's a great question, Catherine. That is a wonderful question because it doesn't matter what level you're at. It doesn't matter. Yes, I have struggled with imposter syndrome. I have stood and thinking, why would anybody listen to me? Or am I going to really be able to perform? There are all of those doubts. Or, I'm looking at my business. Am I really making any progress? I mean, those are good questions to ask. But it's okay to step back. But to get beyond that, again, I say take the time, start very, very small steps. And I think that the little tiny, it's like creating a new habit. And I'm big on that, creating systems, creating habits. My dad, I learned from my dad. He, you know, he set out his tools the night before. You're always prepare, take little tiny steps, and you'll be surprised. I've done every album project with this. Produced over 20 albums, and little tiny steps. You take those lists, and then it's done. It's done. You release it to the world. You can't be afraid of releasing it, but take the little steps first, gain confidence along the way, um, learn as you go. Part of the process is the journey. You want to enjoy it, especially at this time of life. We don't know how long we have. We just don't know. I'm not going to be negative about that, but we don't. Okay. So enjoy these years, enjoy what you do have, be thankful, grateful every day. I just think those principles, they're very, very basic. We hear them a lot, but do we really apply them?
And like in this environment, there could easily be some people watching and listening that have loved their job, and
Yes.
all of a sudden it's not there.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? And they're going, "Oh my goodness, at my age, how do I go back into the workforce?" Uh, all those things we're talking about, the inner critics going, "Oh my God, I'm too old. No one's ever going to want to hire me again," or whatever. However, I always say that everything happens for a reason. And as much as, it doesn't feel like it at the time, our biggest nightmare is usually our biggest gift in disguise, but it takes a little bit down the track to be able to view it as that. So what would you say to those type of people that really have never done anything perhaps other than, I mean, I know this era, I know someone was saying to me the other day that their son who's in college, when he was in high school, I think as a senior, they were saying by the time he graduates from college, the jobs that he'll probably be doing were not even created yet. But when we go back to our era,
Mhm.
some people, not me and not you, but a lot of people have done one thing their whole life.
You're right.
So I would think there's people out there that are feeling a little lost. And it's like, well, what do I do now?
Mhm.
Some will be in a position to actually give back, and they're in a financial position to do that and think, well, what would I like to do? Would I like to volunteer somewhere or whatever?
Mhm.
But what about the ones that really are relying on financially, a job or starting a new business or whatever? What would you suggest to them?
Yeah, that's a tough one. But again, yeah, especially if you've been in one area your whole life. I really suggest, again, this takes stepping back,
Mm,
um, looking at it logically, which is really hard to do. If you are panicked, all of a sudden there's so much fear. There's
yes.
a lot of fear. Just fear. Like, what if AI is going to take all my jobs? What if all of this? I mean, there's a huge amount of fear. That's part of what I wanted to do, and I have done at the first part of this book, is take away the fear. Understand how it works. It's not going to take away the human element. The thing
Mm,
really, really focus on is the importance of your soft skills. Now, some people, I have talked to people that have been in business for years. They have no idea what soft skills are. I say soft skills. What are those? Now, we know because we're speakers and we train people, but there's people that don't know. They just don't know, and they're afraid of it. So the hard skills are just all of those things that you've learned and you've taught. I've learned how to do music notation. I've learned how to write. I've learned all of these things that you've learned how to do, create documents, all of that. But and AI can do a lot of that now. They can listen to something, you'll have it done. But the thing they can't do is be on a phone call when people ask me, can I just help talk through some of these things? The soft skills, listening, being able to mediate, being able to, when I get somebody, if I'm really having an issue, like I give an illustration of not being able to get an airline reservation, and it's so frustrating. I've got it, everything there, and I booked the airline that I got a live person on because
wow.
I wanted a live person to tell me I got everything taken care of instead of the computerized going, here, click number 2, click number 4, click. I didn't want that. I wanted a live person. There are positions, and you need to step back and say, what are the skills I have? And this is hard to do. You might not be affirming yourself. And this is why get a coach, get a friend, get a mastermind, somebody around you saying, do you think I'm good at this? What do you think? Don't talk their ear off, but just kind of like put these things out. It's nice to get another little opinion and just to be able to identify some of those skills. And you'll be surprised. You may not be like looking for jobs and go, oh, do you need somebody that can do this? But there's going to be areas that open up that you feel, now I can do that. I understand now. But you have to step back. Again, there's that stepping back. Especially if you're type A, you don't want to do that. You want to just run ahead, but you want to step back and say, really think, what, all these years of experience, what have I done really well? If you've sat in a cubicle for the last 30 years,
Mm,
able to be in the same cubicle, you probably have some people skills because you've been able to stay there and you've not been, shifted around like people complaining. But you might, okay, so I helped people in the office. I did this. You're gonna you're gonna be able to step back, or I'm the one that always got the documents. I know how to finish. That's a huge skill. If you know how to finish projects and actually complete them, that's a skill.
on
Okay.
time.
People cannot do that, especially creatives. So
Yes.
there are things that you can do. You just need to affirm those. I hope that helps somebody that's listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can never see ourselves the way other people see us, how
Right.
they perceive us. And I think it's a great idea to actually ask close friends, or if they've lost their job, ask former workmates and go, what do you feel were my strengths? What do you
Yes.
think, and what do you think made me unique? Like, what did I bring to the
Right.
table? Because we often don't even realize those things.
We have, yeah, it's really hard to affirm you. Some people may not have a problem. You might, thank you. Yeah, congratulations. But I don't always see, I've had to affirm some of my skills and especially branching out because really speaking and writing books, which now Power of After is actually my seventh book. Okay. So I'm a creator. I love to create. I've done a lot in my past, but I had to affirm a lot of those. It's a companion field of music, being a professional musician and branching out into this area. I had to realize there are companion skills that I've brought. And I'm able to produce. I'm able to push things out the door. I'm able to help other people finish projects. I'm able to help people move along. I've taught for years since I was 13. So I know how to get results. I know how to inspire. And so I had to affirm some of those. It's not, and that's what I really, really love. It's not always on like being on stage for me. It's like that behind the scenes helping other people be on stage. That's wonderful. That is so exciting. At this point in my life, that's very exciting to me. Yeah.
Answer this question because I was going to ask you, how do you personally stay motivated and adaptable in the different stages of your life? So you probably have something else to say about that.
Oh, well, I just have to affirm my husband because it's the morning cappuccinos.
Is the what?
Yeah, the morning cappuccinos that we have to.
Oh, yes.
Yes. But again, if he comes from a corporate, he's run his own business and okay, so he's done a lot of different things. He's been a professional musician. No, professional athlete, not musician. I was a musician, but I understood the entertainment part. So that's when we got married. And then he was in corporate and then he ran his own business. So he comes from a little bit, I was never corporate. I was in education and I've been a lifetime entrepreneur. I understand how to get projects done. I understand how to promote. I understand all of that. So that helps me have somebody to bounce off of.
Mm.
Part of it, and I'm always very grateful for that. Not everybody has that. I have a spouse that I can talk to about those things. And when he tells me, you know what, you need to slow down a little bit or think through this, that's a good thing. It's a really good thing for me. And, we've been married for 45 years. I know I look much too young, but no, but it's a great relationship. He understands what I've done then through the years too. So there's that. I also have really some good friends, and I call them the close circle in my life. They understand where I've been, where I'm going. It's those are important contacts. They're not just everybody, and they're not
Mm.
social media. They're not. I don't always put a lot on social media because you can get a million likes and still not move ahead. Okay, so that's kind of what it. Maybe I'm just totally jaded, but it's important to have that close circle. And if you don't have that, again, step back and, to have a friend is to be a friend. Don't be overwhelming. Boy, this is what our parents told us. Maybe your parents did, maybe not. But that was the way I was raised of just, taking time and reaching out to people. And you know what? The older we get, gracefully, the older we get, it's important to develop those friendships and contacts because some of them move away. We've had a lot. We're in Southern California. A lot, people move away or they travel. So you're not always. You have to be intentional. So intentional about that, and it adds so much to life. And then it's not just all about just the business, but it's about the fun of the journey too. I hope that answers again some more of your question there.
Yeah. And so, what about the leaders in the workplace that are having to, I guess, develop more soft skills and also lead their teams? So, how can they apply your concepts to support their teams during like times of disruption and change and probably innovation on some levels. But yeah, because people are creatures of habit, aren't they?
Right.
And
Sure.
yeah.
And we've all worked under people that are not good leaders. Okay.
Mhm.
There's no magic bullet there saying, okay, can you like soften your tone? Can you do, anything? Um, and I always think relationships are relationships. Um, Take a step back. What's your tone of voice? What is, all of that. There are so many good books on this, communication books. And if you are a leader and you are finding, my leadership style is not everybody's like listening to me. Well, you might not be listening.
Mm.
You might not be listening back. So there's a two-way there. Now, there's always going to be people that are just going to be, they're going to be that prick under your skin. You're just not going to be able to. There's
Mhm.
always people like that. And they are not in my close circle. Okay. But if you have to lead those sort of teams, there's a lot, just that mediation. It's going to be taking a step back, thinking through it, get some outside advice. Say, how should I deal with this? I've not had to deal with it. Well, of course, when I've run, I did, as you know, I was president of our LA chapter of our speaking. That's the first time I've been a president of an organization like that. It was a nonprofit for a year. And I had a large team. And there were a couple people on it that were a little, you know, but I knew to give them a certain amount of time, and I knew to be very, very specific in what I asked them to do. And if they didn't, I found somebody else just to do it. just and you know what? And I just smiled and went on. But you can't when you're working with volunteers, especially now that was volunteers. You don't always have that choice in a business. Okay,
No.
so there's it's just a fine line. You're walking a little tightrope there with your leadership. There's no pat answer to that. But again, listening, it's a big skill. There's some great books again on that. Who was the guy that was the FBI? He was a hostage negotiator, and he talks a lot about mirroring what people say. You mirror back to them what they say. You listen. Actually, I've read this book several times
Is
because
it Chris Voss? He came to our
yes,
chapter. Yeah, yeah.
yes, he did. Chris Bott, excellent book, because
Mm.
he talks about negotiating. Boy, if you can negotiate with like a killer on the other line and get them, there's some good advice there. But it really talked. I just really remember about that mirroring, the talk, thinking kind of that outside of the box is always used too much, I think. But you have to listen. You have to say back to them, "Do you mean this? Do you mean
Yes,
this?"
Barrett. Yeah.
Hear that. So just some of those mediating skills. Again, don't be afraid to read books, listen again. I don't always remember because what I've read. I'm rereading books, consistently to make sure I remember some of those principles. So that I think that's a really important, especially in leadership and self leadership and leading yourself, which is paying attention to your own journey.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, I have a key phrase that I use, and, lots of people have used it, but it really resonates, I think, when you're leading a team. And that's people don't care how much you know
Yes.
until they know how much you care. And I think a lot of leaders these days have a very surface level relationship with their team. It's not necessarily deep. They don't, and I'll say to them, look, do you know their partner's name? Do they have children? Do you know their children's names? Do they have a pet? What's their favorite hobby? Or what, get to know who they are other than in the role that they are in your workplace, because then they're going to go, oh, this person genuinely cares about me as a person and not just what I've got to do when I sit at my desk or I turn up for work. Because I think that's crucial.
Yes. Such a great point. The gal that I did that we were making jam this afternoon again because peaches were ready. I'm a farm girl at heart. I was born in the South. Anyway, but she wanted to give her husband's a pilot, and she wanted to give his team jam because she just lost her dog. And they were all so kind to him and kind to their pet because it's like losing a family member
Yes.
when you lose a pet. But she wanted to appreciate them in a gratitude. And I guarantee that every one of those members will be so appreciative of that they were, compassionate to their boss, and now they get
Now
this
she's actually saying thank you. Yeah, it's a two-way street, isn't it?
two-way
Yeah,
street. Totally. And so you've got to be, as a leader, you're never high and mighty all the time. I know you can give, and you can and tell your team, yeah, I've faced loss too. So that's a big loss. And yeah, it's so understand what people are going through in their life. Now you don't want them to stay there forever.
no,
There are people that stay there forever, and I have very little patience with that.
yeah.
But yeah, you've got to be able to move on. But if really, as a leader, you should understand that there are these things like that. Yeah.
So, what would you suggest to people? What sort of mindset shift did you have to make, and what could they make, as far as, they might be an empty nester and they're going, well, who am I without my children today? Because their whole identity has been this amazing mum that maybe makes jam and makes their costumes for their dance recital and turns up to softball or whatever.
Yeah.
So what sort of mindset shift would you suggest to, say, a woman like that?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because it does affect you when those kids are launched and they're out. First of all, first of all, be thankful. First of all, be thankful they are launched. I tell you what, we've raised 3 boys. Be thankful they are launched and they are now contributing to society. So you can have a lot to be thankful for. And I have learned, because our kids now are just they're all over the country pretty much, so we have to travel. And so I'm not one of those people that get to see grandkids and get to see our kids. And that's kind of a little adjustment for me, a little bit. But I've had to accept the fact and be so joyful that they are doing well and they are thriving. But I'm intentional too about keeping the communication going. That's important. But I don't live down the block. I'm not asked to do all of these things, which actually I can run my business. It gives me more freedom. So, there's those areas that I think stepping back, understanding where you're at. I'm a mother-in-law to 3 beautiful women, but I'm the mother-in-law. I'm not the mother of daughters. And there's a difference. If you if you have sons or daughters, you know what I'm talking about. So there is a difference. And so understanding, I don't want that to hold me back. I don't want my mindset of like slipping into a victim. There's easy victim mentalities that all of us can sink into. And I do not want that to be a part of my life. I want to be able to have the joy that I feel and be able to radiate that no matter where I'm at and with who I'm at. And sure, there's times that I wish, I could do little things different, but there's certain things that are just out of your control. And so I think that for me, that's a process of journaling. And I'm not saying my life is perfect at all, and I don't miss that, but there's a process of journaling that I can put what you put down on paper, I can leave on paper. I can just leave it there. I'm a pencil and paper girl. So I can leave it there. It's written down. I can leave it for the day. So I think that's an important part. I don't need to write pages. I just need to be able to understand that someone else understand. My husband will understand. But I'm careful, you know. So there are adjustments, and just accept that's just kind of part of life. That we raise these kids to be independent. We raise these, we're going to. And what if you've lost your job that you've had for how many years, and that's all you know? Well, again, change. How do you deal with change? That's a hard one. Get some help, read some books, understand affirm where you're at, what your skills are, and really, what do you really want to do? Because all of a sudden you want to jump into something else. What do you really want to do? Are there options? Look at all the options. If you're out of options, get some advice. This is where, and be careful about who you get advice from, because there's a lot of people that call themselves, professional coaches and all of the, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of choices, but just do your research, and get somebody with a lot of, that common sense or a track record, and that's able to help you through the step-by-step process of going through those mindsets and what you can do next. I hope that answers, again, getting through some of those mindsets. But for me, I go through the journaling process. I make sure I spend time exercising, get that energy out. I make sure I get outside. I get out. Being outside is wonderful for me. Give me a pair of clippers and let me trim on some of my trees, and it's such a diversion. Get away from it from a little bit, and then you'll be amazed. And this is for, especially for creatives. I'm a creative. Get away from it, and you come back to it, and all of a sudden it makes sense. You got to get away from it a little bit. That is a real big secret, and it's what some people, they just keep spinning. And it's that endless. That's another book I wrote. The roundabouts. So get out of that, endless circle. Stop circling. Yes.
You've had a really fascinating journey so far. If you look back to little girl Deborah, did you foresee all these things happening?
Oh, I know. You know what I liked to do, always liked to do, was to create and give. So
Mm,
I started DJ Works, which is, I have DJ Works Media because it covers everything I do. But DJ Works, I was Debbie G, and then I married a Johnson, so now I'm Deborah Johnson. So it's still DJ, but I used to make cards for all our neighbors, and then I give them to our neighbors. So I just hand drawing. So, and I knew I loved music. So I started going into music, into the grid. I had no idea. I was kind of pushed into the teaching. I taught since I was 13 because I didn't want to pull weeds or watch the five kids next door growing up. So I made more money teaching piano. And then I started teaching their parents. At 13 years old, I was teaching adults. So that was kind of a skill. I was able to keep going on to teaching. But then I just didn't want to be in the classroom. I've taught every level through graduate school. I've taught at the colleges. I've done, because I've raised a family too. So I've been able to do the music, and I've been able to teach and do that combination. That's where, I taught the music business, but music business is just business. It's business. So you have, that sort of, you look back at all that experience, and I've had some freedom too, which I've really been thankful for. So not everybody, they're the main person. I was able to also, I worked a lot, but I was also able to be around with those boys. I tell you what, you got to be around with those boys. They'll get into missions. So you have to, you got to know where they are. So not jumping off a roof somewhere. So yeah, that's a part of that journey. But I didn't even know, KATHRYN, I didn't even know, they never said when I went through college and graduate school, entrepreneur was never mentioned.
yeah.
Know what an entrepreneur, what is that word? And I realized later in my journey, oh, that's what I am. So that's how I did everything. And, I did a lot of gigging. So, and I always say that your last gig is your last gig. It is. And you have to keep promoting, you have to keep going. And I've worked a lot, but, it's that entrepreneurial mindset. They didn't tell us that, at least when I was going through my schooling. I know some people are going to watch this and go, oh, you are so old. But yeah, I mean, now they have entrepreneurial courses, but
Yeah.
they didn't have that. They didn't have, when I was going through with music, they didn't have notation software at all. We did everything by hand. I did all my graduate thesis, everything was by hand, black fingers, the whole thing. Then, oh, there's a computer that does that. Wow. So there's all of these, this progress. So I've had to mentally learn. And I tell you what, it's a process to have to learn all these skills. When people say, "Oh, I just can't learn anything," and I just have very little sympathy, I say, "You have no idea." There was not even a Mac computer when I was going through school. Everything was on a typewriter. We use that whiteout stuff. No, it's we all have to be willing to embrace, okay, we have to learn, we have to study, the program's out. You don't have to know everything, but you have to be willing to move forward. And that's a true mindset. That's a long answer, but
Yeah, yeah. And I think that, you and I know when I arrived back in the US in January 23, I started really playing with ChatGPT, and now I'm learning a whole lot. And now at Influence last week, beautiful Susan Frew showed us,
wonderful.
all these amazing tools we can use with AI. But for somebody that has never ventured into all of that, that is in the second half of their lives,
Right.
it can be scary.
Yes.
Um, what would you suggest for them as just a little starting point, like a little jumping board into it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Read the first part of my book, first of all, because I do talk about the fear. And again, it's very basic, but realize um, behind AI is input. So that information now it's duplicating really, really fast just because of quantum computing and how fast everything is going faster and faster. But there's input. And I use the illustration of, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, and they're working, they're going to, and oh no, they're going to see Oz, and they've got this big, their fear. All of a sudden they see, oh, there's Oz. And what happens is little Toto, the dog, goes like by, and he pulls down the curtain. And all of a sudden you see a man back there going, he's doing all the controls. And that's what AI, it's input. It's just input, and then it's just working faster. So you understand, and there's different types of AI, because there's the generative that'll start, creating. And this is where legally it's going to be some issues, I think, in the future for song creation, art creation. There's a lot of things on that, and okay, what are they based on? How much are they using of the original? Because there's input. There's always input on the back end, and then building on that. So when you understand a little bit of that, and these tools that'll kind of start learning your style, don't be afraid. It's basically input, output again. So there's something on that back end, and it's data, a lot of data. So I talk about that. There's part of it that's just this data that does it very, very, very fast, but it's data. So, and then there's the creative side, that's the generative. And then there's, of course, the face recognition, which is more of the, unstructured. So I talk about the basics of that, just not to get so confusing. If you want to really study it, there's a lot of deep books about it. And I don't really care to read all of the deep books about it, because I don't need to know that much. I need to know the basics of how to use it and how to help other people use it, and also how to use it in my business. So that's learn to kind of, and experiment, and don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to fail. I have failed so many times. I've got I've been, I've built into my own recording studio. How many times have I been stuck for a whole day with something that just won't work? Lots. Okay. So there's all of a sudden, there's one little control, there's one little knob, there's one little thing that I didn't do. So then you write it down, make sure you remember for next time. Hopefully you write it down. But you learned through that. You can't move forward. I still got my projects done. You can't just stop and say, okay, I'm worthless. I'm just worthless. No, get away from it. Get outside. Get a pair of clippers. Trim on those trees. Get outside and take a walk. If you don't have a dog, yeah, walk your neighbor's dog. So, but you just, get out, get away from it for a minute, and then come back.
Now, speaking of the fact that you do mention that in your book, let's put your book up now,
Oh,
so that people can actually hear a little bit about it. I'll hand that over to Jason, my producer, and he will show all of our viewers how to get a copy and what it's about.
thank you so much.
Discover how to turn life experience into purpose, impact, and momentum for your next and most meaningful chapter. Deborah Johnson's The Power of After helps you answer the crucial question, what's next? As you create your ideal business using AI and other current technologies.
So I have thoroughly enjoyed talking to you, Deborah. It's awesome. It was great to see you last week in Scottsdale because we're now in totally different cities. And
Yes.
I love that you're doing this because I think a lot of people in their second half, that I talk to, some of them are terrified of AI, and it's like, no, make it work for you. It's got its pluses. Yes, they'll work out the glitches and things as we go along, but I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing because I think there's a huge need. So I do encourage everyone, buy Deborah's book. And just do one thing, like, it's baby steps. It's like you didn't learn to walk by just jumping up and walking. You wobbled, you fell over, your inner critic didn't go, I suck at this, I might as well give up now. It's the same thing with embracing something new in your life, whether it's AI or whether it's actually, embracing retirement or an empty nester or perhaps entering the workforce in a completely different capacity. You're going to fall over, you're going to make mistakes, and it's about failing fast and failing forward. So
Great advice. And I mean, you have an entertainment background too with dance and all that you've done, and you get it. I
yeah,
mean, you're gonna fall down. You're going to, miss different steps. It's exactly it. You can't just say, oh, I'm just worthless. And sometimes that's what we beat ourselves up, especially at a certain age. We can really beat ourselves up,
especially women.
especially women. And it's interesting because I focused on AI in the first part of this book because I was in Hawaii. My husband and I were in Hawaii. He said, you know what? I think you need to talk. You need to not talk about just these other areas because I've written a course about them. He said, you need to approach AI. I think this is a fear. And he was right. I thought, that means I have to do more study. So, and how to say it in an easy way to understand. That's really hard to do. You need to say it in a way people can understand and not be afraid of it. And so that's important. And I tell you, it's been a joy because I've been able to now talk to my husband a little bit more, who is not technical. He is not a technical guy at all. He's a numbers guy. I tell you what, tell him, and he's got it. But he has embraced it in so many areas now, and it was really fun. And he's understanding it, and it's a tool. It's just a tool.
Yes.
It has limitations, so you have to understand that your skills are very, very important. You need to affirm those, keep building on those, keep building and understand and affirm those. And, it's not going to take away everything. I hear more every day. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot. Every day there's different situations where we need you, we need people, we need especially people at that mid-career halftime. We need your skills, we need your experience, we need you have a lot more freedom, you've got that common sense many times that well, that's not going to work, I've tried that before. Come on. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, thank you again for being an amazing guest, and I do hope that people buy your book. And you also have a website that we can pop up, I believe, as well, where if they'd like to learn more about you, because you do training, you do all sorts of amazing things and speaking. So that's going to pop up now. There we go.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Yes. Well, yes. Thank you so much. Again, you can contact me anytime, questions, but yeah. And there's a free download that comes with this too, like a 21-page. I always try to give lots of bonuses and extra. That's the educator in me, but I think that's important. I want you to have the tools. I want you to have the resources. I give away a lot. So, thank you.
Thanks again. And thank you everyone for joining us, and tune in next week where we will be talking, actually it'll be me because one week I have a guest and next week it's me. And I think I'm going to be talking about the fear factor, which will really tie in beautifully to what we've been talking about, and how to actually stick that fear in the backseat of the car. Don't have it behind the wheel. So thanks again, Deborah. And thank you to all of our viewers. See you same time, same place next week. And feel free to share this.
Thank you, KATHRYN.
Thanks for watching The Champion's Mindset with KATHRYN Orford. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next week.